Hi guys, today I'm going to be showing you how I did this set of nails. This is all hand painted and encapsulated in acrylic, so if you'd like to see how I did it, stay tuned. Right, okay, so first of all, I've laid down a thin clear base of acrylic, sculpted out, and then I've put coloured acrylic down as well, but I've kept it really thin because I am actually going to encapsulate this design in acrylic once it's painted on. So I need to leave a little room for the top layer and also to file, so they're quite flat, and then I'll build my apex with the clear at the end. So I've filed and buffed them all into shape because I need them to be completely smooth for painting on, because I don't want to file through my painting when I come to file at the end. So they're all the right shape and they're all flat as I can get them. So I'm going to go ahead and start blocking in the shapes. I'm going to show you how to spread the design over several fingers because it's like a sort of a mural, if you like, over the nails. And on this particular set I'm going to do it with her, do it so that it all connects together with her, as her nails are, as her hand is flat, so as her fingers are out. I sometimes do that, or I sometimes do it where if you bend your fingers then they're all in line. It just depends on the design, because obviously there's a big shift when your fingers are straight. But for this case I thought that would be fine because it's quite a large image with lots of height, so that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and put the background on. This is a cloud background. Obviously this is based on the movie The Cat Returns, and this is the particular scene where she's like falling from the sky and the birds help her land and stuff. So I want to have that cloud background on there. Now to do the clouds I'm doing it sort of with like an aquarelle technique, so I'm putting quite wet paint on and then wiping off my brush so it's completely dry and coming back in and sort of wicking that away, so sort of mopping it up a little bit, leaving an edge to the cloud so it's kind of got like a that cloud silver lining sort of look, so it's got some shadows and some highlights and stuff. So I'm just going to do that on all the blue nails, and then I'll come back in and do that around where I've done the face as well. So yeah, just keep going in and mopping it, popping more on, mopping it up, and getting it how you want it really. I'm not specifically trying to copy the ones in my reference, I'm just sort of trying to give an effect of clouds, so just make it kind of like soft and fluffy and whimsical looking. And then I'll just give my face the second layer. I do make quite a lot of adjustments to this design as I go, because I get my elements in and realise that I've not left enough room for this or whatever. But I've left most of that in just so that you can see my process. So generally I go around and I block in all the shapes, and then go in with the detail after I've blocked it in, because that helps me get my proportions down correctly. I'll just let you watch this a little bit for a while. I make quite a lot of adjustments, so bear with me if you see me like going over things. I've left it in so that you can see that it doesn't just go down normal, you know what I mean? It doesn't just go down perfect first time, and you can always just go over it and just slightly tweak where you want the proportions, or where you want the certain line to be or whatever. You can always just go back over it. I'm just using acrylic paint on this design, which is obviously just like a normal painting paint that you paint on paper with. I use the Pebeo, I think it's pronounced, or Pebeo, whatever. I use their brand. They're not anything expensive or anything like that, but they are quite good quality. They're really good quality for in their price range. So that's what I went with. I've got a link down at the bottom of my description where you can get those, if it's something you want to go ahead and get. I just generally work with them just slightly watered down, obviously depending on the effect that I want, but they do need to be watered down so that you can get the flow on your brush, especially when you're using a really fine brush like this. You might see a few instances where it's like all clogged up on my brush, you know, when I'm using my other brush, and that's where I've not quite used enough water. I did these nails probably about a month and a half ago, and I've had a lot more experience with acrylic paint since then, so I might not necessarily be following these tips in the video, but they are things that I've picked up since, you know, that I now do. You'll find that you get a much crisper, like easier to lay down fine line if you just water it down a little bit more than what I have in this video. I'm just sort of getting my skin tone down now, working out roughly where the cheekbones are. I've put my eyebrows in, but I do actually change those in a bit because they're a little bit low. I decide that the forehead's not quite tall enough. But yeah, so I'll let you watch for a few minutes and I'll come back when I've got some like relevant information to share. But I'm basically just laying everything in and doing it a nail at a time basically. But when I come to the next nail, I will line them up to make sure that I get everything blocked out in the right place before I start adding any detail and stuff. So I'll let you watch for a little while. Now you see I'm blocking out the nose now, and the line doesn't go down quite as nice as I would like, and it's like a big dog nose. So all you need to do if that happens is just come back in with some of the skin colour basically and sort of block around it. If you put a big blob on like I just did then, you can always just come back in and cover it up. It's no problem at all. Sorry, that's my phone. It's no problem. So you just basically come back in and block it back out. I'm going to have to start putting my phone on silent when I'm filming because, well, when I'm voicing over, because this is becoming a thing now. So yeah, so you can see I've just gone and done the nose again. I'll just keep doing it until I like it, you know, just literally keep going over it. It's, as long as you kind of let the paint dry a little bit, obviously this is fast forwarded, so you know, it looks like I'm doing it immediately, but I'm not. As long as you let the paint dry a little bit so it doesn't go muddy, it's absolutely fine. If you get any bits where it's getting a bit bulky, or you put some paint down and it's in a big, you know, dry lump or anything, just pat it down flat and then paint over it, it's fine. It doesn't matter too much about the texture on these, you know, if you add too much texture with the paint, because like I say, it is all going to be encapsulated in acrylic anyway. As long as it's not absolutely ridiculous, then it'll be fine. So yeah, so I paint on all the features and then decide that she looks derpy as, and paint over like the eyes, the eyebrows, half the hair and her mouth. Like I just wasn't feeling it. Sometimes if I get like this and it's not working but I don't really know why, I'll just leave it on for a little while I do something else. So I'll like move on to the hair and just keep it, you know, so that it's in your peripheral vision, and eventually your brain will just be like, oh, that's what's wrong. So as you can see, even though that looks terrible, I've left it for a little while so that I can just sort of work on something else while I work out what's wrong with it. I'll just let my brain catch up a little bit, because sometimes I'm looking at it and I'm like, it looks terrible, but I don't know what's wrong with it. You know what I mean? Because it could just be two lines, or it could be the entire face. You don't know until you sit and work it out. But I don't want to stop working, obviously, and sit and look at it. So I'll just move on to another area and then I'll come back to it once my brain's caught up. So here we go. This is when I decided the forehead's too short, and that's what the problem was. And then I can move everything else up a little bit and make the mouth a bit smaller, and I think I adjust the chin as well. So yeah, so I'll let you just watch me do these adjustments. And then I'll come back when I've got something else to say to you. There we go, much better. So I've finished blocking the face out now and making those adjustments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and refine the detail now. So I'm going to make sure that all my eyes are in the right place and start on, you know, getting the irises and pupils looking tidy, and then adding some highlight and stuff like that, and making sure that I've got those eyelids creases in and such. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I do get some trouble out of this eye now. So yeah, so this piece didn't go to plan, you know what I mean? It's not gone down smooth or easy, but it's come out perfect because I just kept persevering with it, and that's basically what you've got to do. Sometimes paint just don't play, you know, if it's warm and, you know, it starts to dry a little even though it's on a wet palette and things like that. Or sometimes your brush is getting caked up and you can't work out why, and it's just that you've not got enough water in your paint, or sometimes it's blobbing everywhere and you've got too much water in your paint. So you just got to kind of work with what's going on with it at the time. I'm sure that people have the same trouble with gel, because I'm sure when it's warm it's a totally different texture. This is what I'm talking about. If you end up with a massive lump like that, just flatten it out. Just tap it and flatten it out, and then you can just paint over it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Even if you're doing this just under gel polish or whatever, you could still do that. It's perfectly fine. As long as you tap it flat, it doesn't matter how much it blobs out, because you can always just repaint the bit that it's covered. So that's what I'm doing now. Just trying to get this highlight nice, make sure that I'm not covering up anything that shouldn't be highlighted, like the eyelashes or whatever. Much better. I think I'm coming in with some highlight in a second on the hair. Just reblocking that nose out, making sure it's all exactly how I want it. Because once you've got the majority of it down, you'll start to notice little tweaks that you can make. Because obviously everything's proportions are determined by each other, if that makes sense. So you might think your nose looks fine until you put your eyes on and you're like, my nose is massive. Or whatever. Yeah, just keep playing with it until you're happy. I was happy enough with this. Moving on to the other finger now. So this is what I mean about laying them together. So how she will hold her hand out for the photograph or to show people or whatever, I'm lining it up so that the image flows from one to the other. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm just laying in the bit of hair in the image, and then I'll do the outline and I'll add the highlight the same as the other one to tie it in. So yeah, I'm just going to do that now. Just make sure that from nail to nail you try and keep everything consistent. So if you do lines a certain way on one nail, don't do a heavier or lighter line on the other nail kind of thing, and make sure your highlight's roughly the same colour. And I generally have a wet palette so that I don't have to keep mixing the colours up, so I can keep the colours consistent from nail to nail. Now I'm just coming in and adding some of these crows on that are on the reference. I'm doing them sort of sketchy silhouette style, so all I'm really paying attention to is the general shape and what direction the feathers are going, because obviously I'm keeping it quite sketchy. And then I'll add like a little bit of a highlight, and that's it. I'm not adding any faces or claws or anything, or any detail of any sort. They're just more like shadows, I'm gonna just throw in whatever I want. I'm not really sticking to the reference. I've got the odd one that's, I'm using the reference as inspiration, basically. I'm not worried too much about making it match perfect. This is the only time where anybody's even going to see this reference and the nails together is on this video, so the client ain't going to have to worry about it. So I've blocked out the Baron there, and he's a little bit too high, so I couldn't quite fit his hat on and it felt a bit squashed, so I've just wiped him off with some water. That's all you need, and I'm just basically re-blocking him again. So as long as you don't waste your time doing several layers and then be like, oh, I need to change, I shouldn't have put him there. You need to just make sure you're happy with each stage so that you can move on to the next one. And just try and keep the image of the complete piece in your mind as you're working. So visualize all the details on top so that you know if they're going to fit, if that makes sense. Now obviously it's not 100% accurate, as you can see. I've gone over them a few times, but you can you get better at as you go, kind of thing, as imagining where they are and how large they are and things like that. And you get used to what your brush can do as well, because obviously you're working on a very small scale. You're not getting as much detail in as you would like, or as the original image has, for example, because they were drawn on A3 or whatever, so obviously you're restricted by the size. So yeah, so I'm just blocking them in. I'm putting in like your main colour, your shadows, any highlights, blocking out my shape so that I know where everything is, getting the structure down, and then I'll come in and start lining, and then it'll all come together. I'm just obviously constantly looking at my reference and going back and forth. This was the first set I ever did flowing from nail to nail, so I think I've done like 2 more since then, and I've got a lot better at it. Got to constantly improve, otherwise what's the point, right? As long as you're improving, you're winning. You see now that I'm putting the lines in, all the structure makes sense, whereas before it was a bit like, what even is that? Now it makes sense to everybody, but I always had the lines in my mind, if that makes sense. So I always knew what it would look like, kind of. So you just sort of got to build it in layers from the colour up, sort of thing. Fortunately, with him being so tiny, I'm sure you can tell that this client's got absolutely minute nails. Like, they're so small. Her index is smaller than my pinky, like loads smaller. So unfortunately I couldn't get much detail in his face, so he's just got a dot for an eye. I changed the composition a little bit there. I don't know if you will have noticed, but I've moved his cane up so that it's in frame, on the nail. I think this is something that, you know, obviously nobody's going to be looking at this reference, so you can do it whatever, but if you've got any bits that you want to include in the image that aren't on your reference, just shift them around. It's absolutely fine. It's your world. You do what you want. You're creating it, you know. I wanted to get his cane in there because it's like a bit of his characterization and stuff, you know. It's like a recognizable trait of his, so I wanted to get that in. So I'm just going to fill the rest up now with some crows. I've obviously covered the pinky and crows, and I'm going to do the ones on the thumb as if they're sort of like spiraling up into the sky. So I'm just again going in with my fine line, doing scratchy feathery shapes in roughly the shape of a crow. Just try and make sure that you know what direction that the feathers are going to go, and you kind of know like anatomically what a bird looks like, because you see a lot of like McDonald's M's birds and stuff. Like it's not, for me it's very annoying. I find it very irritating. I think just look at a bird. How hard is it? You know what I mean? Is it really that hard to find a reference of a crow if you don't know what one looks like? So yeah, but obviously I've got a reference right in front of me and I'm using theirs, so whether this is accurate to a crow or not, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the tails are a different shape, but whatevs. But it's generally bird shaped, which is fine by me. So moving on to the other hand now, I'm gonna do three filler nails if you include the thumb. So these are basically the pattern that's painted on the wall in the, you know, the bit where they're in the maze. So like the tower and the maze and all that. So there's like these like weird little fish kipper prints all over the wall. So that's what I'm doing. If I was to do this again, I would make it an actual strip across the nail, so I'd have a gap at the tip of the nail as well as at the top, because I think it would just look better. But I was quite happy with how this turned out. It was actually a lot harder to draw than I thought, because it's a really odd shape. So yeah, so I'll do those two, and then I do two of those, and then I do the pattern that's on the staircase up the tower, you know, the sort of like just triangular pattern. I do have a bit of a disaster with that, and obviously you'll see that if you stick to the end, because there was a bit of a fail with my encapsulation, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, so I'll speak about that when it comes around anyway. So I'm just blocking this in and filling it out. I'm using this paint quite watered down because I want it to be kind of washy, because that's what the texture of the paint is like. It's almost like it's on a sand block kind of tower, and it's like an old red paint, you know, or like maybe even a natural dye or something. So this is the pattern that's on the staircase. And what I should have done, I should have just done the red pattern and left it at that, but I decided to try and paint the stairs in. But because, like I say, you brush it, you have a limit of what you can do at this scale with your brush. I tried with my brush and it wasn't going to work, so I decided to try it with some like a fine liner. This is where I went wrong. Do not try and encapsulate a solvent-based ink. It does not work. It completely ruined this entire nail, so you'll see that in a minute anyway. I fixed it, but it were a pain in my backside and it annoyed me a lot, so I definitely wouldn't do that again. 100% do not use pen in your nails. Like obviously like Sharpie and stuff's fine, like permanent marker, but this is just like a gel fine liner or something. It's like I don't know what you'd call it, like, yeah, just a fine liner. Yeah, it's just a fine liner. So yeah, it's like a cheap one that you get from like Wilkinson's or something. It's what I actually use for doing my client cards and stuff. It's just a pen basically, but it's not a ballpoint. And it must be solvent based or something, I don't know. It just did not play with my acrylic at all. But yeah, so on the other two nails I'm going to do a little Muta, because he's such a little like grumpy boy. I love him. He's my favourite character. But I was going to do Muta reading the paper, but then once I put it down I just didn't like how it looked, so I ended up taking this off. I just thought I don't want to do anything that's this small again. I want to get some detail in there, you know, because there's no big art on this hand, so I wanted to make sure that you could see his face and stuff, so I decided to take this off and just do like a little portrait. And then on the other finger I decided to do the wall painting of Muta eating everything because I just thought it was super cute. It made me laugh, so we did that. So I'm doing this reference in the bottom left now, so I'm just doing his head basically, that's it. So this is a nice simple line one. It's just basically blocking in a couple of shapes and then throwing some lines on. It's really easy. So I'm just going to let you watch this one and then I'll come back when I come to the next. Right, so now we're coming in for the wall painting of Mootery and everything, so I've put my little reference up there. I'm not picking up all the details on this, I'm not bothered about like the fish's eye and stuff like that, but I'm just going to sort of block it out, and I'm keeping my paint wet again so it's kind of washy, so it looks like it's sort of painted on a sandstone wall sort of thing. But yeah, so I'm just blocking the shapes. I'm not going to do much outlining either, so this is going to keep that sort of texture of it being like sort of like a hieroglyph, you know, or a I don't know what you call it, like, you know, like a caveman painting, that sort of thing. So yeah, so I'm just going in and blocking out all my shapes again. I'm gonna just basically do everything that I normally do but without the lining, so I'll let you watch it. The one thing that I do slightly different to the rest of this particular nail is the fish I do quite thick, because it's a yellow and it's on a sort of a beige background. I wanted to make sure that it stood out really well, so I do that at full strength, if you like, and then the rest of it's washed down. So I'll let you watch the rest of that. Right, so everything's on and it's all dry, so now it's time to encapsulate. So you need to, basically, if you're going to encapsulate acrylic paint in acrylic, you have to make sure that all the edges are free of paint. So even if you have like a 1/4 of a millimetre gap around the edge, you have to have that, because the nail acrylic has to touch down onto the nail, otherwise you'll end up with lifting or peeling, or you'll get a bubble under it or whatever. You'll just have surface breakdown. And after all that effort, that is not what you want. So you need to make sure that you've got that rim all the way around, all around the cuticle, side walls and the free edge where the acrylic can touch acrylic. And then once you've done that, you're good. So the only other thing that I would say is you want to make sure that you try to get it in the exact shape that you want it, so that you don't have to file it when you're finished. You will need to file a little bit, obviously, to make sure that it's flush to the cuticle and all that, but you don't want to be shaping this nail. It needs to be practically perfect. You just want to give it a quick buff, basically, because otherwise you're risking taking the design off underneath. You know, so that's why I shaped it all before I put the design on, to make sure that I'm not removing sidewall or whatever, you know. So it needs to be basically perfect. So I'm doing a lot of work with this brush and checking it from all angles to make sure it's as close as I can get it. Also, when you come to filing, you need to make sure that you fully buff the nails afterwards, because if there's any scratches at all in this surface, they cast a shadow onto your like image and make it look blurry, and it's a nightmare. I've had whole sets where I've had to take all the polish off and buff them again because I've got all the way through and realised they're all blurry as hell. So yeah, so that's my tips for encapsulating in acrylic. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'll let you watch, and then when it comes to filing, I'll talk through like what specifically I'm doing. So because it looks like I'm giving it a full file, but I are. So I'll let you watch the rest of that, and then I'll come back when it's filing time.
Perfect.
Oh, just a quick point, this is the one that messes up. So it's had ages to dry. I've done 2 nails since this, and I think because of whatever is in that pen, all the paint just starts slipping off the nail, and I'm just sat there like, are you joking me? What the hell? As I'm sure you can see, I'm quite annoyed. So yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm assuming it's the pen. It's never happened before, it's never happened since. The only time it ever happened was when I put the pen in there, so it must be the pen, right? So yeah, so I don't do that no more. But yeah, I'm just going to finish the nail off, and then when I've, you know, filed and buffed it, I'm going to try and fix it before I top coat, you know, just kind of camouflage it a little. I'm not going to be able to fix it, but I can camouflage it, so we'll go ahead and do that. Right, so for filing, all I'm doing is I'm just doing the slightest little tidy up on the free edge, getting my cuticle flush, and then just whipping over the nail to make sure that the shape's not too bad. Then I'm buffing the living daylights out of it to make sure that it's smooth. So I'm just doing that on all sides, just making sure I've not got any acrylic where it shouldn't be, basically. There's hardly any shaping going on whatsoever. I'm just whipping over the surface and then buffing. This is me trying to fix this, so I'm just sort of covering up the gaps where it's come off. There's nothing I can do about where it's slipped to because I can't mix up this nude, and even if I did, it'd cast a weird shadow and it'd look weird because it's like in front of it's like a good mil or whatever, half a mil in front of the background. So yeah, I'm just trying to sort of cover it a bit and make sure that where the paint should have been, there's paint. Then I'll let that dry while I do the rest of the top coat on, and then I'll just top coat it at the end. So I'm going to let you watch the top coating now. If you stop to the end, I've got some photos of the finished set. Obviously top coating's the best part, so I'll let you watch this. So yeah, if you liked the video, please do drop me a like, and if you loved it, subscribe. And I've got plenty more coming like this. I've got loads of like full art sets. That's kind of what my channel's become. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you want new techniques as I discover them, or you want me to give some tips or whatever, you know, just follow me for tips and tricks. I've got my Instagram and my Facebook as well, if you want to follow me there, in the description. And I shall leave you to watch, so enjoy. Thank you very much. Bye bye.